Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today we are doing my most surprising reads of 2019. So usually being a booktuber, being involved in the book community means that you set a lot of expectations for books, whether you try not to, actively do it, subconsciously do it, whatever, and you hear all these different opinions. You may go into a book objective and ignore all outside forces, but you still know the kind of gist of what you like, what other people like about it, what they don't like, and etc, etc. All of these books that I have on this list were surprising to me because they went against my prior expectations going into the book. So let's get into my top 5 most surprising reads of 2019. At the number 5 spot, we have Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. Prior to this book, I believe I had only read Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry and maybe like 1 or 2 other contemporary books. So I had been a primarily fantasy reader, I still am, but I didn't have really any experience with contemporary books. So I went into this with kind of low expectations. I didn't expect to love this book, let alone give it 5 stars, let alone Mary H.K. Choi being one of my favorite authors of the year. This book is also surprising because Mary H.K. Choi has a very slice of life writing style. She doesn't have all that interesting plots. They're very realistic, I should say, so they don't have anything that really latches on to me personally. For example, Heretics Anonymous has that religious aspect to it, which I am really interested in, so that was what drew me in. This one, it's about a girl who meets a guy in the midst of a panic attack. They develop a relationship via text message after they make each other's emergency contact. Like, yes, there is the whole developing relationship via text, which does appeal to me as a very much introvert myself, but other than that, there wasn't anything necessarily spicy about this book. But despite that, this became one of my favorite contemporary books of all time. It has my absolute favorite YA couple of all time in it that beat out Dimitri and Rose from the Vampire Academy. They are just a bunch of cynical assholes who complain about life together, and that is my personality wrapped up into one beautiful millennial pink package. This book spoke to me on a whole nother level. It talks about mental illness. It has troubling relationships with mother and daughter. It has that craned pessimism in this book that really is my only personality trait. I loved this book so much. I thank Monty every single time I reference it because he is the reason that I picked this up. I should have had much higher expectations just based on his amazing, impeccable taste, but I am so glad that this surprised me. I'm so glad that it was a 5 stars. I love this book so much and it is just truly a masterpiece. Love it, love it, love it. Now on the number 4 spot is A Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is my second favorite book of all time. It is my second favorite book of the year. I don't read classics. Don't like them. Don't care to read them. I don't like to take that extra effort to have to figure out a person's writing style. I would rather just enjoy the book, enjoy the story, and enjoy the plot that they present me and the characters that they present me. So I just was never into classics. I just don't want to take that extra step. You can call me lazy. Probably is laziness. I'm okay with that. But after Becca from Pistachio Paperbacks read this book via audiobook 1 month, I was like, oh my god, I listen to audiobooks all the time. Why don't I try to listen to an audiobook of a classic that I've always been interested in? I have always had an interest in Picture of Dorian Gray because my channel name is Aphrodite Reads. I am obsessed with vanity. I am obsessed with beauty. Yeah, of course I was interested in Oscar Wilde. Have you seen his quotes? The man is a genius. So I was like, yep, immediately. Picked up the audiobook, checked it out from my library, listened to it, became one of my favorite books of all time. This is incredible. It is ahead of its time. The humor is so incredibly modern. It is so applicable to today's humor. Oscar Wilde is able to just blow you away with one sentence, and all of his sentences are like that. It's amazing. It has such gay themes in here, and I don't mind the homoerotic elements in here. I'm usually not a huge fan of homoeroticism because I just think it's kind of fetishizing, especially because most female authors kind of write gay couples that way. But Oscar Wilde was a gay man, so Own voices, we love to see it. Not believe that I loved this book as much as I did, because so off-brand for me, but not really. My next most surprising read of the year was Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is an origin story of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. I went into this book wanting bloodshed and murder and dark, twisted fairy tale origin story. That is not what this book was, and I thought that without that darkness, without that bloodiness, I wasn't gonna love this book. I love this book, and it was so surprising to me how much I love this book that I didn't give it a full 5 stars until 2 months ago, when I kept thinking about this book on a weekly basis and how much I loved it. And I finally reread it recently, and it deserves the 5 stars for me. It's much more of a subjective 5 stars, I'm not gonna lie. It is a fairy tale retelling. There's nothing special about this particularly. You know how it ends. It's an origin story of a villain, so you know it doesn't end well. But the descriptions is so incredible. The audiobook just blew it out of the water for me. I loved the whimsy in this. It made me feel like I was watching an Alice in Wonderland movie, and for that reason, the whimsy, the fantastical elements, it just knocked it out of the park. It was a perfect execution of what it sought out to do, and for that, it's 5 star. Very surprising that I rated it so high. Very surprising that I couldn't stop thinking about it since I read it in February, despite it not being necessarily anything special, but it's special to me, and that's why it's on this list. Now, my second most surprising read of 2019 is The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. Now, this was so surprising because of the amount of hatred this book, or maybe not hatred, I don't want to get too intense, but this was so surprising because of the general consensus about this book and the constant repetition of the same reviews that I saw about this book when it first came out. I was so incredibly surprised and very much disappointed in the community when I finally read this and saw what it truly was. And The Gilded Wolves is just an example of how you really do need to read every book to see for yourself what you think about it and how you are going to feel about it, because you might have a completely different perspective than most of the community. In that case, that's what happened to me. I did a whole review on this where I talked about the misconceptions and how the perception of this book kind of didn't give it the credit that was due to this book. It discusses such prevalent themes that we still see the repercussions of today, like colonialism, imperialism, talks about it in such a fun and entertaining way. While you read this, you feel like you're in an Indiana Jones movie or a National Treasure movie. It is so incredibly entertaining. It's so complex. Roshani goes through such incredible intellect, such like math and science, and I'm not good at math or science, but it's easy enough to comprehend where you're just enjoying the complexity of this heist and each of the steps in which these characters take to get to their end result. It's just brilliant, masterful work. It's inclusive and it's entertaining, it's fun, it's heartbreaking, it's lovely in its character relationships and the plot and everything, magic system, all of it. So interesting. Sorry for the angle change, my camera died and it is likely going to die very soon. So let me just finish up talking about The Gilded Wolves. This is just really surprising because I had such low expectations going in based on how little the community cared for this book. I was expecting an incredibly confusing magic system and an underdeveloped characters and a confusing plot, but in reality, none of those facts were true. The characters were incredibly developed. They had incredible interactions with each other and care for each other and love for each other. The magic system was clearly defined and the plot was fast moving, entertaining, and incredibly unique. So loved this book. Such a surprise read of 2019 and I am so happy about it. Now, the number one most surprising read of 2019 is the entire Grisha Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. This is another case where the community just prepared me for such horrible and terrible writing that when going into this, I found none of that. The amount of hate that the Grisha Trilogy gets in this community is crazy to me because there are so much worse series out there. I thought this was so entertaining. Of course, it is still a classic YA series. It does have its fault. Of course, there's tropes in here, but for the most part, the magic system is incredibly unique. There's great world building in here. The characters are all super interesting. Alina is an incredible, powerful character. Yes, is she too insecure for her own good? Yeah. But she's also a teenage girl, so I don't understand the amount of hate this story gets. I didn't like the ending. In fact, the last book is in my most disappointing list of this year. But despite that, I still just had such a fun time reading this trilogy. It was so entertaining, so fast-paced. This is the first time I actually binge read a series in years. I do not do that. I'm terrible at reading series, as you guys well know on this channel. It's kind of sad that it gets shit on so much in this community because I really just had such a fun time reading this trilogy. It was such a highlight of the year, and I am so excited to watch the Grisha TV show. I think they're gonna do an incredible job, and I love just watching Leigh Bardugo grow as an author through this series and then reading Six of Crows. It was so fun, and it was certainly a surprise because I thought I was going to absolutely despise this. I thought it was going to be so hard to get through, but it was the exact opposite. Alright you guys, so that is it for this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out with the channel, and you don't want to miss any of the videos that I'm posting in the last 2 weeks of December. Let me know down below what your most surprising read of 2019 was. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!